It's okay, it takes time.
Welcome back to Strong, everybody. Tonight's episode is going to be a live panel with 4 teenagers talking to us about what it feels like to be a teenager and how stress and pressure and mental health is having an impact on them. And really what we want to be understanding is how, as parents and educators, we can be supporting them and understanding what they need from us. All right, so tonight's all about learning, and we're going to be talking to Bhumika, Aya, Ruby, and Sami, and I'm going to introduce them to you in a minute. We're going to be talking to them about their perceptions of mental health, stress, depression, and anxiety amongst the youth. Now, of course, they cannot speak for the youth in its entirety. We're just here to get a snapshot of what's really going on so that we can understand how to best support them. And in coming together as a community, we can start to really understand how to empathize. Because I think this is one of the challenges that we see as adults, educators, parents, guardians, even just community members, is that we look to the youth and we think we know what they need and we try to make them do what we think they need, but no one really takes the time to understand. So that's what tonight's all about. I'd like to introduce our amazing guests. Let's start with Bhumika. Bhumika is 14 years old. Just give us a wave, Bhumika, so we know who you are. Bhumika's 14, and we have Ruby, who's also 14. Give us a wave, Ruby. Hey, Ruby. And we have Sami, who's 18. Give us a wave, Sami. Great. And Aya, who is 15. Wonderful. So we are going to be talking about what you guys think, what it's like to be a teenager, and what you see in your community, whether it's here in the UAE or when you travel abroad to other parts of the world, what you're seeing, and definitely what you're seeing in social media. So we want to have a really casual conversation, remembering that somebody watching this right now might be going through some mental health issues, and this could be the conversation that they walk away with feeling really, really supported. So let's start with my first question. And that is, as a parent and an educator, and of course, as someone who believes they understand what the youth need, because I work with the youth and I try to support the youth, what I've seen with parents and educators in trying to understand the needs of the youth is that they think, or it's a general perspective of what we think, that the teens seem to have a good life. And very often when I'm in a circle of adults and we bring up this conversation of teenagers, you very, very often hear, yeah, but they're so lucky. When we were growing up, we didn't have this, we didn't have that. For example, education is so much better. Private education, the opportunities that are available, technology at your fingertips. It's this fast-paced lifestyle of you want it and you want it now, and you seem to always want to get it. And then there's this lifestyle, especially in this part of the world. The lifestyle of a teenager just seems to be really rich and privileged. Sami, you're almost on your way to that next stage. You're 18, you finished secondary education, you're now on your way to university, you're going to travel to Europe. What do you believe about the statement that I've just brought out?
I do believe that it's a lot at once. Like, just because there's more opportunities doesn't necessarily mean it's relaxing for a student, because for me, in my experience, I was jumping from what I wanted to do after high school, just on every single part of it, like every industry that I could think of. And I was just stuck until last minute.
And would you say that you would often hear from adults in your life that, oh, you're so lucky, when I was growing up,
Oh, yeah.
I didn't have this, or you're so spoiled. Do you really think that is that really what it's like, or is this just an adult's viewpoint of what it's like?
No, it's definitely a privilege to have, but with having a lot of opportunity, it is helpful to be able to maintain what your head wants while there's just
Okay.
a lot going around you.
And Aya, what do you think about that? I know that you often hear this conversation, especially being my daughter and being around me doing this work with Strong. I'm often asking you this question, you know, this is what the communication barriers exist between adults and teenagers, is we think they're lucky and they think we don't understand. What do you think?
I think like what you were saying was right. A lot of like parents and teachers often say like, oh, we didn't have as many opportunities as you, or we didn't have like as many like opportunities or privileges that you like teenagers nowadays have. And I think at times that is true, but I feel like they mainly use that like to an advantage to kind of like, I don't know, minimize teenagers and make them feel smaller and make them feel like their like problems aren't as important as they could be, and that there's other things that matter and that they should just stay quiet about how they feel, because there's always that, oh, you don't have it that bad. When I was like your age, I had this and that going on. So it kind of makes teenagers like, yeah.
Bhumika, what do you think? I see you smiling.
I agree with Aya, to be honest, because with the advancement of technology, it makes everything, it may look like, oh yeah, we have social media now, so we can keep everyone together, we can talk to everyone really easily. But with social media comes insecurities, and you like scroll through Instagram one day and you see like someone and you're like, wow, I want to be her. And then you start feeling insecure. And then it's just a long cycle. And then there's also the aspect of cyberbullying, where you can make up a false account and just bully someone without them knowing who you are, which really just messes with someone. Because, yeah, we have it easier. Like, okay, we have more technology. We don't have to work as hard for opportunities, but we still have a lot of competition when we're looking at those opportunities. So like the GCSE boards, for example, they've just gotten a lot harder, and that just puts a lot of pressure on us to get in the top 3% of the world, to get the 9s, to get the 8s. And it's just really stressful because parents and teachers have already done it. They've been through what they've been through. Even like if they did the same things as us when we were little, when they were little, sorry, they're still gonna tell us off for it, even if they didn't get in trouble and they got away with it. So
that's very, very insightful. Thank you, Bhumika. Ruby, what do you think? We've heard from Aya. Aya talked about this communication between what parents think and what really exists. Sami talked about the pressures of knowing what he wanted to do and changing his mind. And Bhumika brought in a new dimension as well, definitely something about going into more detail about technology and then the pressures that the youth have. What's it like from your perspective, and what do you see around the youth that you seem to be spending time with?
I personally feel really like privileged because I go to a private school where the facilities are amazing, but I feel like teachers and educators and parents, because we're so privileged, they kind of undermine our struggles, which could be in social or different areas, because we have opportunities in front of us. And I feel like we still do have struggles. It just doesn't have to be based on a financial basis, almost.
Okay, what would some of those struggles be? So as a parent, we look out at our children and we think, okay, we're earning more money than, say, our parents did. We're more educated than our parents were. There's this idea that we should give to our children, and I overheard my father speaking to Aya the other night saying, you know, you have to be better than your parents were because they're giving you better opportunities. What are some of those stresses and some of those pressures that the exams are offering or technology is offering that adds a little more pressure and adds some stress that we wouldn't have experienced in my generation, that you guys are now having to experience and having to convince the adults in your life that it's actually really, really stressful? Let's start it with Sammy, because again, we're looking at you're 18, you're at that age that you're almost able to see the two sides of the coin, because you're now getting ready to go off and be independent, and you're at the stage that your parents would have done everything they can to prepare you for that next step. So let's start with your perspective. What do you think are some of the stresses that the privileges you have are adding in your life, or have added, that parents can't understand and adults can't understand because they didn't have those privileges?
I think it's mostly just high expectations. I think that's the most important part. A lot of schools will say, oh, we have this many people that have this grade, and it's the top grades that you can ever get. And it just gives the students a high expectation, saying, oh, I need to be there, or else it's a disappointment from the school or my parents, or it's just they have to reach a goal, and if they don't reach that, it just ruins their mental state at the moment.
Okay, so we heard Bhumika talking about tests. You're bringing up grades as well. Ruby, Aya, what do you think? Are there other stresses other than testing and grades that are things we should be paying attention to?
I think maybe like parents kind of use like family, friends, or like other siblings as a way to set expectations that they have. Like maybe they'll say, oh, like this family friend got this, like Sammy was saying, they got this grade and this is what we're expecting from you, and anything lower isn't acceptable, and it just makes you put more pressure on yourself than everyone else is putting on you, and then you just end up just bullying yourself to do better, and it just ends up affecting your mental health as bad as it can.
Also, what Monica said before about like social media and insecurities, I think that's really true.
Bhumika, talk to us a little more about social media, because I know it's a hot topic, especially with parents, especially with educators. We're always talking about, do we let them use devices, or do we take the devices away because of social media, because of those pressures? How do you see social media providing opportunities, and how do you see them paralyzing the youth?
Social media provides like job opportunities that you wouldn't have 10 years ago, which a lot of people would enjoy going into. And it also gives you the aspect of, it gives you a goal in life to go to work towards, and you aspire to these people that you see that are doing way better than you at a young age, probably like at least 5 or 10 years older than you, and you think, wow, I want to be that when I'm older. And it just gives you the aspect of, okay, I'm here now, how do I get there? But that also builds stress, because it's like, okay, I'm trying to get there and I'm trying my best, but my best isn't good enough for anyone else. And I keep trying my best again and again and again, but I keep getting pulled down by teachers and by parents saying, oh, I know you can do better. Why didn't you get one of the higher grades? Why haven't you like done it? Like, why did you mess up on this test? When they truly don't know what's happening in your head. And even if you try and speak to them about it, they're just like, oh, you shouldn't be insecure about someone you just saw. You don't know what's going on in their life. It's true, we don't know what's going on in their life, but we can still, the aspect that they show us makes it look like their life's amazing, and we want to have that. So it's just that like thirst for doing better, which just builds stress on you, because you're like, okay, I want to do better, I want to get there, but how am I going to get there?
Do you think it starts with social media? Because as you were talking, Bhumika, I was getting flashbacks to my children when they were really young. And I remember being on the playgrounds, and I remember being at sports days and watching parents and watching those competitions. Do you think it starts with social media, or do you think that it already started when you were very, very little and it's just being highlighted at a larger scale because now it's become more public on a public platform?
I definitely think it started from when we were really little, but because of the enhancement of social media, it popularizes the topic. Because on social media, people have a voice, and no one's going to tell you you're wrong, even if they comment like, oh yeah, I hate you, you're horrible, none of this makes sense. You still have a say and you still get to people. And I feel like it just started when social media wasn't around. In like, when was Facebook made? 2006, where some of us were born. And I just feel like it started from a really, really young age, and they've just been building on it, and it just sits at the back of your mind, and it's just getting added onto and onto and onto until you hit a breaking point. And then the breaking point just makes everything worse, because then it makes your parents feel bad as well, because they're like, well, what could I have done? Basically.
Wow. That really, I'm listening to you, Bhumika, and I'm thinking, I can't even breathe because I'm wondering, how do we get around this? Ruby, how do you see, where is the light at the end of the tunnel with getting through these really formidable years in your life and wanting to do well at school, wanting to make your parents proud, and wanting to kind of survive this generation of everything being posted and everyone's best life looking a certain way and not really being what it looks like?
I feel like you have to love yourself and not put your expectations so high that they're unreachable, and that you just have to focus on one thing that you really want to be good at and not focus on like 20 multiple things. Because I feel like because of social media, you see all these talented people, and I just feel like that's so hard to access, and I just feel like you should just love yourself and focus on one thing.
That's what we're always telling everyone to do, right? That it's really what we're telling. Sammy, what's it like in the guy zone? Does social media have as much of an effect on self-esteem, self-confidence with the guys?
I don't think it has that much of a difference, because as you get older, you'll realize that social media was mainly for an entertainment basis. It's like saying, I'm watching this TV show and I want to be that guy. It's the same thing. Like, social media is part of the entertainment industry. So we just need to have people realize that it's not how life works. It's just a dopamine hit, dopamine hit, dopamine hit until you're off of your app, and then what? You're back to reality. So the whole purpose of social media was to give people that feeling of entertainment at the time, just at the click of a button.
So how do we get us through those years? As a parent, I'm really concerned. I'm really concerned that the long-term impacts that it's having at a really important age bracket of the lives of our youth. How do we get them through? Because what you're saying is you're right. It's like having a double espresso. You want more, and then you feel like, wow, that was exactly what I need. But it's also really addictive, isn't it, Sammy? Do you see that addiction factor to it, that it's not just a quick hit? It's almost you look away and then you realize you were on it for an hour or even more.
I mean, that's really the intention of the people that own those social media platforms. They don't necessarily limit your time. They just try to keep you on as much as possible. And it's just, people just need to limit themselves. So there are some apps where you can actually lock certain apps after a certain amount of time. And maybe people just need to start using that, or that's all I can think of at the moment. There's that.
That's amazing. And don't worry about, we're not here to give people what they should do. We're really here to just say, hey, this is what it feels like to be us. this is what, you know, this is what adults really need to understand when they're trying to support us through it. So I want to jump backwards a little bit and to the things that adults say to teenagers, thinking that we're being really, really supportive. But actually, in hearing your responses, it sounds like it's giving the opposite impact. I heard you saying, you know, parents say we should, and it's things that, how do you take what a parent says that you should, when the intention from a parent or a teacher or an adult would be to help, but it's actually coming in a completely different way. It's coming back at you in a different way, or it's being perceived in a different way.
Normally I would just kind of use it as, I guess, motivation to do the opposite that they say and kind of just rub it in their face. But mainly, like, I feel like teens shouldn't really bother with what parents have to say about their mental health, if it's gonna affect them negatively, unless they're helping them out and they know that it's what's best for them. But I feel like parents nowadays should kind of give their like teens space and time to open up and like kind of, like Ruby was saying, like love themselves and figure out who they are first before their parents can start like asking them a bunch of questions and kind of like barging into their life and expecting them to just tell them everything about themselves when they still don't know certain things. And that parents and teachers should kind of just be more patient and calmer and kinder, and not really use their past experiences like, oh, when I was your age, this and that, because even though we were all the same, like we're all going to be the same age at one point, we're all going to go through different things and we're not going to have the same experiences, and everyone's going to have a different experience at different ages. So they should kind of just listen to what they have to say and just see what they can do to help them.
How do we help parents understand that what we're trying to help our teens with is actually not what's really best for them? Because I know this is one of those challenges. So when a parent thinks they want to help you through a situation, and what I'm hearing you say is, well, actually, that isn't what's best for us. But parents' complaints will be, well, my teenager isolates themselves. They're always in their room, the door's always closed. They come home from school and they really don't interact with anybody else. So how do you, what is the medium ground between a parent trying to help their teen in understanding what's wrong and how to help them through, and what a teen will allow them to do?
I think I got
Go
something.
for it, Sammy. Yeah.
I'm doing that at the moment. I stay in my room 24/7. I don't have school until January. So I think it's mostly just because when you're with your parents, you feel like for me, I feel like I'm not doing anything. I need to do something. Like it's just missing because school's over for me. I feel like that stop just made me realize like I'm genuinely not doing anything right now to benefit myself. And whenever I'm with my parents, I feel like, okay, I need to show them that I actually am doing something.
And is that an added pressure, do you think, always being on in front of your parents, or feeling that you have to be?
100%, because you would, and also speaking, like if you talk to them about it, about how you're feeling, it's more of, you don't want to tell them because you don't want them to feel disappointed in either you or that, or like themselves.
I love that you brought that up. Bhumika, Ruby, do you see this as something of a challenge as well, in that what you think your parents expect from you and what you're afraid that they won't be expecting from you is an added pressure and an added stress, kind of like what Sammy's saying?
Yeah, because parents, like, they think benefiting you is like to stop you from going out with your friends. Like on the weekend, you'll ask them, oh yeah, can I go out with my friends? No, you see your friends every single day at school. But I barely have my classes with my friends, so how am I like meant to make that work? And going out with my friends on the weekend maybe like one of the only things that actually make me happy, because if we stay home, we stay with our parents. And when you're with your parents, you get the urge, like sorry, I completely agree with Sammy that you get the urge to do something, and when you don't do something, you feel like you're useless, you're not doing anything. And then they say to you, oh, why aren't you doing any work? What are you meant to be doing? Why aren't you doing what you're not, why are you doing what you're not meant to be doing? Do some work, do this, do that, do the dishes. And it's just like, why can't I have that one day of fun? Because then I have school the whole week, and then the whole weekend I have to stay with you guys. Why can't I just go out that one day with my friends and just relax and not feel any pressure on me?
I'm learning so much tonight. Ruby, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree with Amaka. Like, I feel like it's just, you don't want to tell them anything because you don't want them to be disappointed, so you just kind of keep to yourself.
So in just being around family, it's almost like an unspoken conversation of assumptions. What you think they're expecting from you and what you think they're thinking that you're doing. And actually no one's even talking to each other. We're all just assuming that the other one should do something or say something or not do something. Have you ever really had a conversation with one of your parents and said how you were feeling? And if not, what is the deterring factor? Because I think this is where I see parents and teens really struggling with communication. It's not that they don't understand each other, it's that they actually don't have real vulnerable, raw conversations because somebody's afraid that the other person isn't going to listen or won't understand them.
When you try speaking to like your parents and you're just like, okay, I want to bring this up, I want to speak to you, they kind of like throw it under the bus, and they're like, no, like it's not the right thing for you. But I feel stressed by it, so how do you know it's not the right thing for me? Like, if I want to do something and I feel pressured by something, how are they meant to know that it's not building stress on me? And if I try speaking to them about it, they're just like, no, continue with it, you'll be okay, everything will be fine. But in the end, it's not fine, and it's not okay to just shove it under the bus and to be like, yeah, they'll get over it. It's just putting unnecessary pressure to be better, which doesn't help.
Like, for example, I don't know if that's my parents, but I don't want to tell them. If I do tell them anything, they could just shove it off as them saying that can't be possible. That's just not possible. I didn't raise my child like that.
I love that.
And that's what I think most of the time whenever I bring something up.
Do you think teenagers, because I kind of heard what Aya said before, that when a parent says something, it's almost like, oh, I want to do the opposite. But do you think that parents, it's personal, but it's not personal when they're parenting their teenagers? And what I mean by that is it's personal, meaning like what you said, Sammy, I didn't raise my child to do that or to behave this way. And then it's not personal because actually I really want the best for my child.
They kind of want the best, but at the same time, they're kind of taking mistakes that they made as a teen or a child, and they're kind of making their kid avoid it. And it's not really letting them explore like their life or figure out what they want to do. It's kind of just saying, okay, this is a path that I never got to take, and now I'm making you take that path, and you're going to have to just live with it and make it work because like that's the decision I've made for you, rather than saying, okay, we have so many options, like you can try every single one out and see what works best for you. And I feel like parents just need to be more flexible and accept that their kids are going to make mistakes and they're not always going to get it right. And they need to just take that in and say, okay, like, let me not, like, for example, ground them or completely just bring them back to like level 1 and make them feel so terrible about themselves when they mess up once, and give them that trust and say, okay, you know what, you've worked so hard this week, like you go have a good time with your friends and enjoy yourself. And yeah, like just give them their space, give them their time, and let them figure it out on their own, and just trust that they'll make the right decision.
And how, as parents, do we support teenagers? So I'm hearing you say, parents should, give us that space. But Mika, you were saying, why can't I have that one day to just, be with my friends? Ruby, you were telling us, it's important that we love ourselves and we take care of ourselves. And Sammy, you're saying, like, parents, pay attention because, we might be isolating ourselves because it's actually easier than to feel like we're going to let you down, because right now we don't want to do anything. We just kind of want to be, but we don't want to feel guilty being in that space. How do we as parents help you? So now's the time where I want you guys to give us some tips. We have parents who will be watching this. We have teachers who will be watching this. It's great to hear perspective, but now let's talk reality. What are some of the strategies that we can be adopting to make sure that we understand more, that we are able to relate to you more, that we're able to ensure that you're doing your best, but we're not pushing you with added pressure?
I think parents just need to be more open on being a parent, but without the family part. So there is some stress of being a parent and raising a child, and maybe 2 or 3, but their stress levels of saying, okay, you can't go out because you need to finish this, is them just trying to think in the future, is this one move going to is it going to be a chain reaction to other things? So I think just being open between each other is better rather than the children being open to the parents.
Interesting. Ruby, what do you think?
I think maybe like a family therapy session would help, because you could bring out all the points and enable communication in a positive way.
Okay, so bringing in someone who's not emotionally attached to the situation. And do you think that we should do that as a reaction to an issue, or just as a common, instead of going to have a family meal, let's just go have our monthly family conversation with our counselor?
I think both would be beneficial. Like, you could solve problems and you could prevent problems from happening within the family.
That's really interesting. Bhumika, Aya, what do you think? Give us some tips.
I think parents just need to talk to you. They need to talk to you, and like without pushing buttons, by like not getting angry. So they need to talk to us. They need to just come talk to us with an open mind and be like, okay, I was in your shoes once. I don't know what you're going through, but I want to be here for you. And they just talk it out with us. And like Sammy said, they try and like be our friend and not our parent. So they understand where we're coming from and don't get angry at us for the decisions and for the choices we've made, because we've made them and it's not like we can go back and change them. So instead of getting angry, instead of like putting pressure on us, they could just help us not do it again, help us understand why it was wrong and why we aren't going to benefit from that, instead of just shouting and screaming and being like, no, that's not right, it's like horrible, you should never do that again, blah blah blah, and just continuing on a chain of anger where it's, when you put fire on fire, it makes an even bigger fire. Because
I'm almost hearing parents screaming out, we do that, we do that, you guys don't listen to us. So what are the boundaries? What can we agree should be the boundaries? Because it seems like teens feel that we're not listening, and parents are feeling like, hello, we've already given you so many opportunities. Why can't you understand the boundaries?
they see, when they give us like the opportunities, when they speak to us, they don't speak to us with a free mind. You always have that sense that, right, I know they're going to judge us. I 100% know that they're going to judge me right now, and we're going to end up leaving this conversation with them shouting at me.
I'm going to stop you there because I see Sammy smiling and I see Aya looking at me, and Ruby is in deep thought. Who agrees with what Bhumika just said? Because it's, again, we're going back to this assumption conversation of no words. It's what is in our mind. We're assuming what the other person is thinking. Sammy, do guys do that as well, or is this just the girl thing?
No, it's a common thing, but I actually disagree with Bhumika.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. For example, Maitha just put in the chat room, maybe parents shouldn't compare us to them, but they do need to play that parent role in the first place, because at a certain age there's still gonna be that parent until you get older. For me, as soon as I turned 18, everything changed for them as parents. They became like family friends rather than the parents, because they believed, okay, that's it, he's grown up, he's going, like they've accepted. So parents do need to accept the fact that we can become adults at a certain age as well. But
I like that you're bringing that up, because it's kind of like the passage of life, isn't it? We're educating you to be independent thinkers. We're preparing you for that life on your own when you travel abroad, whether it be for your further studies or whether it be to begin your own life as young adults. But at the same time, we're kind of afraid that you'll make a mistake and ruin any potential opportunity that you'll have. Aya, as we're going to start to wrap it together, what do you want to bring to this? We're talking about conversations that we're having in our minds, really not talking to our parents, but making these assumptions about what they think and how we think that they're going to judge us and what we think they're going to say to us.
I think teens kind of make those assumptions themselves, because even if their parents say like, no, we're not going to get mad at you and we're not going to shout or anything, in the end they do end up shouting. They do end up, no matter how many times they'll tell you they won't, they do. And it's just kind of the fear that we're already like disappointed in ourselves and we already know what we did wrong, and we don't need the added anger, and we already fight our own battles on the inside. And as some people are saying in the chat, like a main reason why some teens stay in their room is because they'd rather be alone than with their parents or their family, because they don't really want to put up an act or like a joke and say, oh, I'm perfectly fine, like don't even worry about it. And then the second that door shuts, they feel terrible and they just want to crawl into a ball and stay in their bed forever. They'd rather just be able to come out when they're ready, because it's more exhausting putting up an act for your family than having to just show them like you're at your lowest point and you don't need all this added extra stuff about, oh, you never spend time with us, you never smile, what happened to when you used to be that happy little girl who used to do this and used to do that, and now you're super quiet and people are noticing. And it's really hard to put up an act. So I think mainly parents just need to understand that teens already beat themselves up for stuff that they do already, and it's a huge deal when parents just add to that anger and frustration, and it causes teens to do stuff that probably aren't the best decisions, but at that time it just seems like it's the best idea and it's the only way out, rather than talking, because some parents kind of don't understand that they're talking to seek help. They take it out on them and they start just victimizing themselves and saying that, oh no, I do so much for you, you don't appreciate it. And teens are super, super thankful for all the stuff that their parents do. But at the same time, like, there are some things that maybe weren't the best idea and weren't the best things that they could have done, and you could have done it together. But at the end of the day, parents just need to be supportive and understand that teens need their space and they need to be able to figure it out on their own at times, because sometimes they need their own space to do that. And parents should just show that they're here, and whenever teens need their help, that they can just lean on their parents for that.
Wow, that's a lot to take in. So much wisdom in there, and our chat box is blowing up. So I'm just going to go to the chat box here. We have Maytha saying that she can relate to what you guys are talking about, and also that parents sometimes bring up how much they do, and it makes them feel that they can't change paths. She also went on to say about parents comparing, and they shouldn't compare their children to themselves. We have Afra agreeing. Basically, parents don't understand when it's us wanting to talk or them pressuring us. And here's the thing, parents prefer forcing us to be with them than staying alone. And she feels that parents prefer us faking our happiness in front of them and not what they really feel. Kind of what you were saying about it's easier to just not come out of your room than it is to be masking how you're feeling. Fiona says that this is very insightful and that her own parents were very much like this. However, as a parent herself to 2 daughters, she tries to have those open conversations and allows them to be empowered. And just on that, I have a question, and I'm going to leave it open. So jump in to whoever feels that they want to answer this question, Ruby, Aya, Bhumika, and Sami. In that, in hearing also Fiona saying that, you know, she also tries to have open conversations. And I know many parents feel that they are trying to have open conversations, but hearing the 4 of you today, I'm kind of beginning to understand that you're not taking it that way, that teenagers don't see the intention of trying to open up that conversation as what it really is. How do we make it better? How do we come across as wanting to have an open conversation with our teens and also allowing them to feel empowered without it becoming a thing with our teenage children and then feeling that we're judging them?
I think it's more of just the conversations that take place between the kids and the parents. So normally, for me as an example, I normally talk about grades, school, activities out of school, just things that kind of like accomplishments that have gone down in my week. But there aren't any. It started to become more of a friendly conversation after we would talk about things we see on TV or a thing you've seen on social media, just casual conversations that you'd have with your friends as well. As soon as it starts integrating into each other, then the child would be more open to saying, oh, I feel like this sometimes, by the way, just on the side.
And do you think that teenagers would feel that they can do that? Do you think they'd give their parents a chance to have that kind of a conversation? Or do you think the doors just permanently closed because, as we were saying before, there's that assumption that they're judging you and that they're not really going to be open to listening?
I think it's definitely a slow process but the parents do need, I think the parents do need to start it, not the child, because as a child, it's not going to happen at all. You're playing the role of the child and the parent is the parent.
So it's always almost walking on eggshells, would you say, Sami?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you think timing has anything to do with it?
Yeah, because you can tell that if they've just come back from a stressful day from school and you can tell they're really tired and they don't want to speak to you, don't pressure them into having a 20-minute conversation with you about a song you heard on the radio, because they're not going to participate in it. Like, I get it, you're just trying to make small talk because you see that they're not what's it called, they're not interested in the conversation. But like, we just need our space because we need to have the break from reality that we need and just be on our own for that short amount of time. And then when you're done with that, it just brings you back and it's like, okay, I'm over that, I'm ready for this, I'll go speak to my parents. And I feel like they they need to bring the conversation up, like Sammy said, in small talk. Like when you see that your child's interested in a conversation, maybe bring it up then and see how they react. And if they react badly, then just be like, I'm sorry, I know it's touchy, I shouldn't have brought it up. Let's go back to watching the movie, or let's just talk about something else. I think they need to be more understanding about what the child's feeling. And like when they're stressed from work, they'll end up taking the stress out on us, and they'll be like, go to your room, go do this, go do that, I can't be dealing with you right now, just shouting at the top of their lungs. But you've necessarily done nothing wrong, and they're just stressed, letting it out on us. And when we're stressed, it's not like we can let it out on anyone else because we don't really know who to talk to about it.
Do teenagers help teenagers? Is there that support system in the community of young adults?
If you have like close friends that you can talk to or people you can trust, then 100%, yeah.
Sammy, I see you nodding as well. Would you
Yeah,
say yes to that?
For guys especially, sports helps a lot. Like for me, I play contact sports just to get over all of this tension, and it does help a lot. So I've been playing for 6 years, and I go maybe 3 times a week, 3 4 times, and I would feel a lot of anxiety during the week, and then every time I'm practicing, it just goes away for those 2 hours, and then I go back home, I'm relaxed, and I can start the next day after that.
And it's almost what you were saying before, Bhumika, about if I can just have that one day, then I can cope with everything else, like you're saying as well, Sammy. Going back to the chat box, it's really blowing up here. I love this. We have, I think that parents don't give us a chance to let them talk. I agree, says Ilya. I feel like there's a test between family and friends and who knows me more. Friends seem to be winning for sure. Do you think your friends know you better than your parents? Is that a thing? Or do your friends only see one dimension of who you really are?
I feel like if you have close friends that you can tell everything to, and you know they're not going to judge you, they definitely know more about you than your parents do. Because with your parents, you always have that perception that they're going to judge you. They're going to be judgmental, something's going to happen. But with your friends, they're going through something similar. Even if they don't understand where you're coming from, they'll always try and be there for you. And they'll always be like, hey, like, don't worry, I'll listen. I don't know what you're going through, but I'm here for you. And I want you to know that.
Wow, I'm telling you, there's so much, and I thought I knew quite a bit about helping the youth, and I don't. I know, Aya, you have a question or a comment about mental health.
Yeah, I think in the UAE, especially, mental health is a very like taboo topic, and I think that there should be something like maybe like a center or a place that teens can go when they feel like home isn't the best place that they could be at that time. And I feel like, I don't know, like ever since I was young, you've always told me that you have to always find different boxes for different people, and that different, like you put a different filter for a different person. So one person might be that person that you'll talk to when you feel upset or you have something new to tell them, but then there's that one person that you know you can't fully trust, and you know that could go behind your back at any second and talk about everything that you just said, but they're just someone that you could always have a laugh with. You always just need to make sure you know who those people are, and that you shouldn't feel like you always just need to have like you shouldn't always think that family is the only person that you can talk to. There's other people that you could find in real life, online. I know that you always have to be safe online, but you shouldn't always just think, okay, I go to this school with these people, that's it. This is my only hope. These are going to be the only friends that I'll have for the rest of how long I'm at this school, and I need to make that work. Because you're definitely, it can't be promised that you're going to find good friends, but I got lucky. I found some really awesome friends at the school that I go to, but it's not always promised, and you just need to know that that's not your only option. There's so many other options, and that I feel like parents should take time, at least every day, maybe before their kid goes to bed, and just sit them down and ask them about their day and tell them, like, you know, if anything happened, like, really be honest and tell them, like, I'm here for you if you want to talk. And also offer them, like, if you don't want to talk to me, there's other options. You could see a therapist. You could speak to someone that you trust. Just give them that chance to know that you're there, but also not to just judge them, like say, oh, you don't want to talk to me, you're being selfish, you're being evil, like someone just sent in the chat, you're being cold-hearted, you're a bad person, you're not showing emotion in front of anybody, because maybe you just don't feel like you can be that vulnerable around family because they're not your people. Sure, they're family, but at the end of the day, it's you, and you have to figure out who you can be vulnerable around and who you can trust. So you shouldn't feel like you have to be perfect all the time around your family, and they should know that you're not always going to be perfect, and you always need to be able to have that time where you can just be vulnerable and be able to breathe and show who you really are, and that you might not be the best person that you could be at that time, and that your mental health might not be in the best place, but they just need to be patient with you and give you your space and time.
Amazing. Wow. Well, guys, we can go on for hours, but I'm just really conscious of the time. We need to bring it together. I've decided that I'm going to call this part one, and I'm definitely going to have a part two. This conversation must go on. And I think what I'd love to see is teenagers sharing their strategies to help parents, because I believe that parents believe they're doing the best that they can, and they feel that they can't really understand how to be better or how to get closer to their teenagers. And it's really, really important that if we're going to come together as a community and support each other, like you were saying, Aya, that, you know, it's not just your people at home, it's other people that you might be able to tap into in order to empower parents and in order to open up that communication at home. I feel that we need to be supporting each other, and it's not just the adults in the room that can offer the wisdom. It's really clear, and your parents will be so proud to see the four of you talking the way that you are and sharing your viewpoint, because there's so much wisdom that you're sharing with us tonight. I know I've learned a lot, and I work with the youth, and I have for decades. Thank you so much to all of you, Sammy, Ruby, Bhumika, Aya, for joining us this evening. Thank you, everyone, for coming in. There's so many questions, so many comments. I'm going to be sharing all of these comments and questions on our #strong Instagram account. If you're not following us, please do follow us. This is where we come together as global communities and empower the youth and empower parents and educators to supporting the youth. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And that brings us right to the end of an amazing conversation that I had with Bhumika, Ruby, Aya, and Sammy. It was overwhelming to hear how wise they are. And I think sometimes as adults, we forget how wise the teenagers really are. And it's that delicate balance between parenting them the way that we think is the right way to parent them, and parenting them, as we heard this evening, in a way that is fitting for the situation at the moment. Some of the things I'm walking away with as learning tonight is space, timing, pressure, school, friendships, and the assumptions that our teenagers feel we are making about them. And that is becoming, as we heard tonight, a barrier to communication. I look forward to seeing you all for our next live, when we talk to more teenagers about perceptions, assumptions, and how it's impacting
It's okay.
mental health in the youth
It
today.
takes time.
Thank you for watching.
I know everything will be alright. The colors will